This story, okay, I'll tell you about this one. So I'm trying to think about one that I could tell that's not in the book. Oh, oh boy, yeah, I got one. You know, like I said before, it wasn't easy growing up this color in my community. I was born in 1962, which to some of you, especially you, say is like forever ago. So in 1962, as you all know, that civil rights movement was going strong about that time. Actually, it had started just before I was born. And as each year progressed, of course, it got stronger and stronger, with the boycott and, the civil disobedience and the rioting and all those things that were happening across the nation. And one thing I don't know if many of you are aware of, but in some states, not up here, but in some states, it was illegal for a black and a white to marry, let alone have kids. So, I can't recall the name of the couple that fought that law. I believe it was in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. Ansel, correct me, I might be wrong, but I thought it was in Virginia that a black woman and a white man married, and their marriage was not honored in their state, and they went through hell to fight that. So this is the time that I'm growing up in. So back then, my mother was very young. My mother and my dad got together. Now, let me first say that I think that the feelings were not mutual between the two of them, because my dad was very angry. He was very angry with white people. My mother was very rebellious. You get it? Her mother, I don't know anything about my grandfather, my mother's side, and very little about my grandmother on my mother's side. But what I do know is when my mother got pregnant with me, her mother disowned her. Okay? She disowned her, kicked her to the curb, kicked her out the family. So I never did meet my maternal grandmother. And let me just say this, I didn't miss a damn thing. Okay? But the way that the times were back then, it was very customary for certain demographics of people to disown their own children because they dare go against the grain of the family belief or the race's belief for that matter. So, of course, my mother, being defiant, she had already been in a marriage. Now, she married very young. There was two other kids before me that she had. They were both girls. She married a white man. And she was 14 when she married that white man. Times were a little bit different back then, okay? I guess her mother must have signed off on it because she was 14. But she married a white man and had a couple of white kids. And clearly that white relationship didn't work. Because you know what they say, once you go black, you never go back. And she never did, as far as I know. But she met my father, and he met her, and but his intentions were not necessarily the same as hers. She was in love with him, I guess. He did it out of spite Did she speak sappy too? I don't know FPMA, no, Noga, what are you talking about? Did she speak sappy too? I don't know, but why don't you sit down in the corner and listen? You might learn something, okay? So, um, as a black man in those times, he was very angry with white people, okay? And this was his way of getting even. Get him a white woman. This black man's gonna get this white woman, and we gonna have a kid. I'll show the white man. I'll show the white man. But that blew up in his face too. Okay, I had to look it up to refresh my memory. It was Ted and Julia. They got married in Virginia. I knew it. I knew it. Thank you. So anyway, sometimes people do things for the wrong reasons. And in this case, they got together for the wrong reasons. She wanted a black man because her mama said she couldn't have one or shouldn't have one. He got a white woman because he was going to show them, that white man, look, I can take your woman from you. Didn't matter whose woman it was. As long as she was white, he was going to get her. And he was going to piss off the white race in the process. And here I'm the result of it. This is the 70s. Well, actually, this is in the 60s, before the 70s. So, 6 months old, my mother decided she couldn't do it. Uh, for whatever reason, they got together and they tried to live together. Did he do it for retaliation? Yes, he did, Keisha. He did it for retaliation. He did. So, what do you do? For whatever reason, they didn't make it. She was out doing her thing. I don't know what she was doing. I've heard rumors, but unless I know the truth, I don't listen to rumors. My father was working. She decided she couldn't do it. I love you too, Ansel. She decided she couldn't be a mother, even though she had 2 other kids prior to me. She couldn't take it no more, because apparently she's not even raising her first two. But in terms of as a whole, culturally, black people have been conditioned to nurture. And when I say nurture, they take in everybody. They may not like them, they may not like it, but they still take them and they feed them and they clothe them and they house them and they love on them. Whether that's just the nature of the black race. And that's not because, it's not necessarily because it's just instilled in us, but because when you've had everything beat out of you as a people. But again, we're talking about a people that built this country. But I didn't want to necessarily make this a debate or anything like that. It's just from my perspective, this is what I dealt with this skin color. We are the ones that freed the Caribbean and the rest of the world. Yeah, yeah. The people who built this country were unfairly treated, and we still haven't received 100%. And it's just sad. And you know why we'll never get it? Because this country would go broke if they had to pay reparations to every black person in this country. They would go completely broke. There's too many people to pay and too much to pay. They've had a 400-year jump start on generational wealth, and we'll never catch up. And it's really sad because they don't have to be like that. They don't. But it's always been instilled in them that they are the superior people. Even today, oh, well, that wasn't me. That was my ancestors. Yes, that might be true, but you are still benefiting from your ancestors. You benefit. Everything that our ancestors went through, we're not going through what they went through, but we still deal with the repercussions. We still deal with the repercussions that they dealt with, just like you deal with the benefits. Because there's one or two things. There's either repercussion or a benefit. Black, white. Okay? So white people will always benefit from the past. Yes, we're human, but that's in God's eyes. We ain't living with God on earth with some of these people. It is up to us to break these generational curses. Exactly, we are all human. That's true. But like I said before, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities. We're dealing with good and evil. There's some good white people and there's some good black people. There's some bad white people. There's some bad black people. And I'm not saying that my mother was bad in what she did, but she had the privilege. You're right. It shouldn't be any color because we're human. But there's a certain level of privilege that you have in when you're a certain color. You know what I'm saying? In this country. Honestly, I'm happy she did that because could have been just abused you, but instead allowed somebody else to take care, which was the right thing to do. Exactly. She knew that my grandfather was going to step in. She knew my daddy wouldn't. But yeah, that was basically where I was coming from in terms of, my little story. That's just the beginning. And the thing is that it's not that anybody hates black. It's just the mentality is so off that it comes off as hate. And in some cases it is hate. Some of them folk down south that don't mind telling you where to go if you a certain color. But you know what? I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Studies show scientifically that the first man and woman that walked this earth were black. Studies show and science shows. This was on the cover of Time magazine many years ago. Black people. They were the first people to walk this earth. And one thing is for sure, is that you can get every color in the rainbow from black. That's right. You can get every color in the rainbow. Every color in the Crayola box has a drop of black in it to make it that color. Okay? Every last one of them crayons had to have a drop of black in it to make it that color, even yellow. Okay? Okay, but brown people are black people, Don Garcia. Unless you don't want to accept the fact that you black. Now, as I was saying, black people were the first. I don't want to hear nothing about brown people. No, black people were first. Because if you check your demographics, sir, you will see that Adam and Eve came out of the Garden of Eden in Africa. Now, don't get me started on black, brown. We all black. Just certain black colors is blacker than others. Don't get me started on that black brown stuff, because they gonna treat you just as foul as they treat anybody else, Mr. Brown. Mark my word. They trying to get y'all out of here anyway. So don't come telling me who was first here. I know who was first here. You come from black, brown. Do the math. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get upset. How did black people become white? Black people didn't become white. How do you think brown people became? Well, white people can come from black people, but black people can't come from white. And that's a scientific fact. See, it's either one or the other. Everything else is in between. You know, you can talk to the scientists, do your research, but everything under the sun comes from black. Everything under the sun comes from black. Nothing under the sun comes from white. White came from black. Now, if you want to tell me that white came from brown, I'm sorry, where did brown come from? Tell me that. Because it certainly didn't come from white. Brown came from black too. So, if you want to check me, make sure you have your facts straight when you come with the check. And make sure that you endorse the check. Otherwise, I'm not cashing your check. Hello.